but from a lifetime of watching what this practice does to women and girls. Female genital mutilation, FGM. It's often defended in the language of culture, honor, or preparation for womanhood. But strip away those words, and what remains is harm. Deep, lasting, and entirely avoidable harm. At its core, FGM is a deliberate injury or removal of healthy tissue from a girl's body. There is no medical benefit, none. What there is, however, is immediate danger, severe pain, shock, infection, and in some cases, death. I've known women who still remember the day with a clarity that borders on trauma. The fear, the restraint, the absence of consent. These are not small things. They shape a person's sense of safety in the world. But the damage does not end there. Many women live with lifelong complications, chronic pain, recurrent infections, and difficulties with menstruation are common. Childbirth, which should be a moment of strength and renewal, becomes far more dangerous. Women who have undergone FGM are at higher risk of prolonged labor, tearing, and even losing their babies. These are not rare occurrences. They are predictable consequences. There is the quiet harm, the kind that does not show in medical charts. FGM can profoundly affect a woman's intimate life. It can make relationship painful, diminish trust, and leave emotional scars that are difficult to articulate. We do not speak enough about that. We should. Some will say, this is tradition. I understand the power of tradition. I've lived long enough to respect it. But not all traditions are worth preserving. Practices that diminish it, endanger, or silence women must be questioned. Culture is not static. It evolves, as it always has. We have abandoned harmful custom before. This should be no different. What troubles me most is that this is done to girls, children who have no say in the matter. It removes their autonomy before they're even old enough to understand it. And once done, it cannot be undone. Let us be clear, protecting girls is not an attack on culture, it is the defense of dignity. Communities that turn away from FGM have not lost themselves, they have strengthened themselves. They have chosen health over harm, respect over fear. At this stage in my life, I have little patience for silence on matters like this. We know the consequences. We have the evidence. The question is not whether FGM is harmful. It is whether we are willing to act on what we already know. We already know. On what we already know.
This morning, I'm not standing in front of you as the mayor of Southwark, not as a councillor, not as an ambassador, as a survivor of FGM, as a survivor of FGM, as a survivor of FGM. Talking about my own genitalia or anybody is not something that can happen so lightly. But it takes courage from a person to come out and speak, to change tomorrow, to change the future. And that's why I say no to shame, no to shame, no to shame. And I refuse to be silenced. 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 I refuse anything that had happened to me when I was a child against my wishes, and no one consented or asked me for permission. I was young. I was naive. I was not able to make any choice or even pick up. Can you imagine? 6 years old going through that. But before I tell you, FGM is being practiced in almost 98 countries. In every country, there are many cultures. So when I speak, you need to know, like, I'm not speaking for every culture, because it might be different. But the fact, the truth is, it's done to a girl almost in the same way. They might call it type 1, type 2, type 4, but the thing is, they slice, they cut a part of us. And that's what I'm talking about. The women I loved, the women who are there to protect me, they were not horrible. They were not kind of like doing it because of abusing me, child abuse or anything. They did it because of love. Otherwise, they never had any voice. They have to practice. They have to do it. Otherwise, they will lose. They'll be kicked out. They thought that to protect me and to be accepted, I have to go through it. Blood. For many, they die as a result of overbleeding. For many, because of the infection. And blood. For many, they die as a result of overbleeding. For many, because of the infection. And blood. For many, they die as a result of overbleeding. For many, because of the infection. And
It does seem, and I've done many long hours of study on this, it's the traditional leaders, whether the clan leader or the tribal chiefs, those who are seen as being monarchs, who seem to be the persons who seem to be continuing or wanting the practice to continue. And yes, you are on the outside pushed them backward, that's true. But I want to keep pressing you on this point. Because I said that whenever I speak to people from that part of the world, right across that, you mentioned the countries, Sudan, Somalia, Kenya, Uganda, I'm like, keep pressing them on the traditional leaders and their role in this. They always want to back away from it. I need to face it. This is the motivator show, you see. So all the evidence seems to focus on those people as being the custodians of culture and traditions, the ones who need to be convinced that this culture and tradition needs to change for the sake of our women. Am I right? I'm testing you both on this point, but it does seem to me to be a junction point. Am I right or am I wrong in my assessment?
You know what? You really have given me a lot of insight because the way we are looking at empowering, educate women, do this, make sure you access service. But I want it. If I go there, I will. But at the same time, it's more like you have touched something that maybe we haven't been doing it in a way that bring them and tell us what you think about it. But unfortunately, our conversation in the Western world is completely different when we are in Africa, I'm telling you. We can't talk openly. Everything is somehow limited in a way. When we go, we cannot talk to our elderly in a way. Obviously, we do respect our elders, our religious leaders, but sometimes it is good for us to sit with them and tell them the pain that we've gone through and we're still going through. It is good for us to sit with them and tell them the pain that we've gone through and we're still going through. It is good for us to sit with them and tell them the pain that we've gone through and we're still going through. And I think this is a conversation that I believe we should start continuing. And I think by just talking to you, you have shown me something that I haven't looked at more before. And thank you to you.
I speak not from theory alone, but from a lifetime of watching what remains is harm. I have known women who still remember the day it cannot be undone. We are willing to act so that we can stop female circumcision now. We are willing to act so that we can stop female circumcision now. We are willing to act so that we can stop female circumcision now and now and now.
I speak not from theory alone, but from a lifetime of watching what this practice does to women and girls. Female genital mutilation, FGM. It's often defended in the language of culture, honor, or preparation for womanhood. But strip away those words, and what remains is harm. Deep, lasting, and entirely avoidable harm. At its core, FGM is a deliberate injury or removal of healthy tissue from a girl's body. There is no medical benefit, none. What there is, however, is immediate danger, severe pain, shock, infection, and in some cases, death. I've known women who still remember the day with a clarity that borders on trauma. The fear, the restraint, the absence of consent. These are not small things. They shape a person's sense of safety in the world. But the damage does not end there. Many women live with lifelong complications, chronic pain, recurrent infections and difficulties with menstruation are common. Childbirth, which should be a moment of strength and renewal, becomes far more dangerous. Women who have undergone FGM are at higher risk of prolonged labor, tearing, and even losing their babies. These are not rare occurrences. They are predictable consequences. There is the quiet harm, the kind that does not show in medical charts. FGM can profoundly affect a woman's intimate life. It can make relationship painful, diminish trust, and leave emotional scars that are difficult to articulate. We do not speak enough about that. We should. Some will say, this is tradition. I understand the power of tradition. I've lived long enough to respect it. But not all traditions are worth preserving. Practices that diminish it, endanger, or silence women must be questioned. Culture is not static. It evolves, as it always has. We have abandoned harmful custom before. This should be no different. What troubles me most is that this is done to girls, children who have no say in the matter. It removes their autonomy before they're even old enough to understand it. And once done, it cannot be undone. Let us be clear, protecting girls is not an attack on culture, it is the defense of dignity. Communities that turn away from FGM have not lost themselves, they have strengthened themselves. They have chosen health over harm, respect over fear. At this stage in my life, I have little patience for silence on matters like this. We know the consequences. We have the evidence. The question is not whether FGM is harmful. It is whether we are willing to act on what we already know. We already know. On what we already know.
This morning, I'm not standing in front of you as the mayor of Southwark, not as a councillor, not as the ambassador, as a survivor of FGM, as a survivor of FGM, as a survivor of FGM. Talking about my own genitalia or anybody is not something that can happen so lightly. But it takes courage from a person to come out and speak, to change tomorrow, to change the future. And that's why I say no to shame, no to shame, no to shame. And I refuse to be silenced. 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 I refuse anything that had happened to me when I was a child, against my wishes, and no one consented or asked me for permission. I was young. I was naive. I was not able to make any choice or even pick up. Can you imagine? 6 years old going through that. But before I tell you, FGM is being practiced in almost 98 countries. In every country, there are many cultures. So when I speak, you need to know, like, I'm not speaking for every culture, because it might be different. But the fact, the truth is, it's done to a girl almost in the same way. They might call it type 1, type 2, type 4, but the thing is, they slice, they cut a part of us. And that's what I'm talking about. The women I loved, the women who are there to protect me, they were not horrible. They were not kind of like doing it because of abusing me, child abuse or anything. They did it because of love. Otherwise, they never had any voice. They have to practice. They have to do it. Otherwise, they will lose. They'll be kicked out. They thought that to protect me and to be accepted, I have to go through it. Blood. For many, they die as a result of overbleeding. For many, because of the infection. And blood. For many, they die as a result of overbleeding. For many, because of the infection. And blood. For many, they die as a result of overbleeding. For many, because of the infection. And
It does seem, and I've done many long hours of study on this, it's the traditional leaders, whether the clan leader or the tribal chiefs, those who are seen as being monarchs, who seem to be the persons who seem to be continuing or wanting the practice to continue. And yes, you are on the outside pushed them backward, that's true. But I want to keep pressing you on this point. Like I said, whenever I speak to people from that part of the world, right across that, you mentioned the countries, Sudan, Somalia, Kenya, Uganda. I'm like, keep pressing them on the traditional leaders and their role in this. They always want to back away from it. I need to face it. This is the motivator show, you see. So all the evidence seems to focus on those people as being the custodians of culture and traditions, the ones who need to be convinced that this culture and tradition needs to change for the sake of our women. Am I right? I'm pressing you both on this point, but it does seem to me to be a junction point. Am I right or am I wrong in my assessment?
You know what? You really had given me a lot of insight because the way we are looking at empowering, educate women, do this, make sure you access service. But I want it. If I go there, I will. But at the same time, it's more like you have touched something that maybe we haven't been doing it in a way that bring them and tell us what you think about it. But unfortunately, our conversation in the Western world is completely different when we are in Africa, I'm telling you. We can't talk openly. Everything is somehow limited in a way. When we go, we cannot talk to our elderly in a way. Obviously, we do respect our elders, our religious leaders, but sometimes it is good for us to sit with them and tell them the pain that we've gone through and we're still going through. It is good for us to sit with them and tell them the pain that we've gone through and we're still going through. it is good for us to sit with them and tell them the pain that we've gone through and we're still going through. And I think this is a conversation that I believe we should start continuing. And I think by just talking to you, you have shown me something that I haven't looked at more before. And thank you to you.
I speak not from theory alone.
And there you are. And there you are. It's the Motivator Show, because this is where we translate our words into action and where success is ours for the taking. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, people, wherever you are in the world. This is a special The Motivator Show. Yeah. As you can see by that intro video, the theme will be in approximately, 30 minutes' time, when we will play that main interview with courageous women, FGM survivors. Yeah. We'll tell you more what that acronym actually means. But this is an incredibly important Demotivators Show transmission. Very important. And one you must not shy away from. It is mission critical. Because I know you will understand, if we show compassion for others, it will return to you 1,000-fold. Yeah? Empathy shown, return to you in 1,000-fold. And together we will make the world a much better place, a safer place for all peoples, regardless of who you are, what you look like, what gender you are, what religious affiliation you have, your sexual orientation, or indeed your age. It'd be a safer world for us all. All right. But oh my gosh, that was quite an interview, and you'll see it in approximately 30 minutes' time. But between now and then, as you know, there's a lot we've got to pack into the Motivator Show. We are a campaigning channel. Here we take up those issues which generally are not being discussed, but absolutely need to be discussed. And FGM is one such subject. But as is in custom with the Motivator Show, we've got to continue to take up those issues which not generally being discussed, ensuring that these issues are never forgotten. We've got to lead the way, be in the vanguard, if you like, be the tip of the spur, yeah, so that change is possible. Be courageous enough to focus on that change that you want for yourself, your family, your community, the wider society. The Motivator Show will be there with you. Hold your hands. So we're together in unity is strength. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. So my first stage, of course, of the Motivator Show, as is the custom here. Let's recall a number of our past contributors, because we've had some quite impressive contributors who've really contributed to enhancing the quality of the information, the dynamism of these podcasts, so that you can fully participate and be a part of change. You are the change makers. Yeah, we have a responsibility to be those change maker. Think and remember, King Kabbalah of the African Continental Unity Party is very clear that we mustn't look for idols, a single person for change. The change is within us, and we collectively are responsible for change. Yes, it's our responsibility. I know you understand. I know it's can be quite unnerving. I get it. That's why you hold hands with others and feel their energy. Your energy become their energy, and their energy become yours. And together you multiply. In unity is strength. Yes, it works. Yeah, it works. It works. I want to recall a person who sits right at the very center of the African community's economic vibrancy here in Britain. Dr. Carlton Brown, you recall him, the author of the Black Entrepreneurs Report. the race paradox. When he analysed and looked at how much Britain is losing by underinvesting in the African community here in Britain, the impact that's having on Britain and indeed the communities themselves. People with incredible talent being underinvested. Not given the opportunity for economic growth to make a real contribution to the vibrancy, the economic growth of Britain. That report was the most telling, a milestone report, and most certainly had significant impact here in Britain. Well done, Dr. Carlton Brown. But many of you will also recall that he also organises, with others, of course, the Black Entrepreneurs Conference. Okay, and there is, of course, one here for 2026. Okay, he pointed out that that's the place where, if you want to get into business, that's the conference to attend. If you're established in business and want to develop new networks, new potential clients, it's the place to be. If you want to just train and understand the latest innovations in business, it is the place to be. If you just want to be amongst the networks of people who will enhance your presence in business or in life, it is the place to be. And we here at the Motivator Show are more than happy to promote the Black Entrepreneurs Conference of 2026. Okay. It is and will be an outstanding occasion. I'm going to play it for you. Just put it on the screen for you. Here we are. I'll put it on the screen. And those of you who are unsure, let me get the right one up for you. Here we go. If you're unsure, what I would say to you all, ask questions. Simply ask questions. So you record. Let me put this one up. There you go. It is the UK Black Business Entrepreneurs Conference of 2026. Okay, and of course you will all be recognised. And if there's any doubt, please ask questions. That it will be a conference in which you're expected to have a strong presence. Let me put the other one up for you. Here we go. Here we go. Put this one off and this one up for you. Here we go. There we go. There you are. So of course, you can obtain tickets if you go to Eventbrite and insert the UK Black Business Entrepreneurs Conference 2026 will be in July, of course. Okay. The Motivator Show has negotiated with Dr. Carlton Brown a special discount. You get a 30% discount. And the discount is very straightforward. It is BBEC Motivator 26. You can see it on the screen. BBEC Motivator 26. So when you go to Eventbrite, you insert Black UK Business Entrepreneurs Conference 2026 and take advantage of that 30% discount, which is BBEC Motivator 26. Okay. And I'm assuring you that this conference is one you should not want to miss. You should not miss this conference. And I'm going to tell you that it's going to be one that I'll be there. I'll be truly enjoying myself. Oh my gosh, it'll be a wonderful occasion. Okay? It'll be a wonderful occasion. So if you have not got a ticket yet, go get one. It'll be absolutely worthwhile. Well done, Dr. Carlton Brown, at the very center of our economic vitality. Well done. Keep it up, sir. Keep it up. Keep it up. I also now want to give publicity to, and it is another matter I think we should all pay attention to. And you can gather from many of my guests, well, what we try to do with our guests is really understand their motivations. Okay. And you recall the most recent episode of The Motivator Show, which includes, of course, reference to the Marcus Garvey Legacy Trust. Many of you will recognize that Marcus Garvey was an incredibly important person amongst Africans worldwide. A person, of course, born in diaspora, born in a society with great injustice, Jamaica. A society in which the majority of people were treated with the utmost disrespect. And what he sought to do, of course, to regain that respect, to effect change in those societies, both in the Caribbean, Jamaica, the US, and worldwide. Okay. Every Jamaican will recognize him as our first national hero, a person for whom we gain great pride, and justifiably so. His last remaining son, Julius Garvey, there's a desire by the Trust that we should arrange for him to visit London in October, in what is our Black History Month, so that the children, our children, your children, yeah, indeed we adults, can gaze upon the son of that great man, Marcus Garvey, and hear his tale of his father's work. Yeah. Julius Garvey is indeed an accomplished clinician in his own right. We'll talk more about that another time. But the Marcus Garvey Legacy Trust is an organization we willingly support. In our next episode, we'll give you further details how you can help the Marcus Garvey Legacy Trust to arrange for Julius Garvey to visit Britain, and the opportunity for you and many hundreds of thousands of you out there, who I know would want to see and gaze upon the son of that great man. It will be a truly tremendous occasion. In our next episode of the Demotivators Show, we'll provide more details how you can be a part of that historic event. Okay, and if you're an organization or an individual with means and an ability to want to arrange for Dr. Garvey to visit your part of the country, you need to contact us here at the Motivator Show. Again, more details will follow in our next episode. But I'm assuring you, this will be a truly inspirational experience. I say to everyone again, if in doubt, ask questions, but write to us here at the Motivator Show if you want more information, direct information about that visit that we are arranging. So our email address is demotivatorshow501@gmail.com. I repeat, demotivatorshow501@gmail.com. And together we will make the difference. Can you imagine the son of Marcus Garvey to visit us? Let's be a part of that historic event. Thank you. Thank you. All righty. Okay. So that's three announcements. We go to one other announcement, and yet to be clear, as we progress each of these episodes, I'm just very conscious that there's a great deal of information we give out in each of our episodes, and I get it. Some people, it's overwhelming, and I get it. I remind you, of course, that this is recorded. And you can always take your time and receive information, the right chunks for yourself. But in no way should you not absorb that information, because it's meant for you. It's meant for you. Can you help us out? We've noticed that in our most recent conversations with audience members, that they've said they've subscribed to the channel. Okay. But somehow YouTube has been able to unsubscribe them at random. Apparently, if this happens, it's not uncommon, apparently. So if you have subscribed, please ensure that you remain subscribed to the channel. And in fact, what we'll do, we want to encourage you, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, help us to spread the words, yes? Help us to persuade the YouTube algorithms that this content is worthwhile and is worthy of further distribution, so we can continue to spread the words. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. But don't leave us without at least leaving a message or give us a thumbs up if that's appropriate. Please, it just helps us to continue our good works here. And thank you for all of you who've given us your support. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. I now need to move forward, of course, to the other campaign issues that the Motivator Show has been tackling. And of course, whilst this is very much a campaigning channel and there are issues that we take up, we always remain conscious that your health is the highest wealth you could possibly possess. I'm going to say it again. Your health is the highest wealth that you could possibly possess. You can have £1 billion or dollars in your account. But if you're in poor health, it means nothing. Yes, you can buy, of course, good medical care. That's true. But if you're in poor health, it doesn't matter. We can maintain good health if we take deliberate actions. And the Motivator Show is conscious that as part of our campaigning theme, that your health is a central theme. So we want to remind you of our regular 5-minute slot, which are essentially lifestyle messages. Just a few minutes, just to remind us all, because I need reminding from time to time, I'm assuring you, what those lifetime messages should contain. So we turn to a professor, the public health director here in London. His message is pretty straightforward. It's common sense when you hear it, but we need to hear it regularly just to remind ourselves what are the correct lifestyle messages. And in approximately 20 minutes' time, we move to the main theme of this podcast, which of course is FGM. Okay, but for now, let's spend a few minutes on these lifestyle messages. It's just for you, just to remind us, what we need to do to maintain good health and vitality, good physical, mental, and indeed spiritual health. If in doubt, ask questions, but ask those questions doesn't mean that you're stupid. No, it means you've asked the right questions. You want to understand. You want to be and maintain good health for those you love, for yourself, those you love, and the wider community. Here are a few lifestyle messages just for you. Kevin Fenton says, I'm a public health director. Here are 5 things you can do to improve your health. 1. Mindful and balanced eating. Nourish wisely. Eat whole, balanced meals with awareness to support energy and well-being. 2. Get outside. Be with nature. Time outside reduces stress, improves mood, and strengthens your connection to the world. 3. Stay curious, stay engaged, explore new interests, keep your mind sharp, build social contacts, and boost your happiness. 4. Get active, move it or lose it. Move daily, lift weight, and do cardio. Exercise, improve physical, mental, mood, and energy. 5. Prioritize rest and sleep. Disconnect, rest. Quality sleep supports mental clarity, emotional balance, and overall health. Just common sense advice, isn't it? Just common sense advice. And as I said, I need that reminder just from time to time, and why we include it in each of our live episodes of The Motivator Show. And of course, you recall that remarkable human being, of course. And that's, of course, Lyndon Lizard, the inspired diabetic. He was the inspiration behind these lifestyle messages that we regularly record here. And there was another person who was also an inspiration behind those lifestyle messages, Professor Hilary Beckles, the Vice Chancellor of the Universities of the West Indies. His particular speech, which struck me, I recall, almost years ago, was quite a significant indictment of the Caribbean health profile, African Caribbean health profile. What I'm going to do, I'm going to play a short piece of that speech by Professor Hilary Beckles. Just a few seconds. I just need you to hear this. You understand why these lifestyle measures become so acutely important.
We have 60% of the black people in the Caribbean over the age of 60 have hypertension or diabetes, or both. Now, if you take the single criterion of chronic diseases, hypertension, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, if you take that simple criterion, the black people in the Caribbean are the unhealthiest people on the planet. And you have to understand that. On the one hand, we are watching Usain Bolt and we're watching the Caribbean athletes. We're watching the Caribbean with an image of being the most athletic people on the planet. But beneath that image of these super sportsmen and women is the hard reality that we are now the sickest people on the planet. In every black family in the Caribbean, hypertension and diabetes is endemic and congenital. In my family, almost everybody over 60 has hypertension and diabetes.
You heard what he said. It is family, the professor's family. Every one of those members who are over 60 have either diabetes or hypertension or high blood pressure. That's an epidemic, isn't it? Huh? That is truly an epidemic. And believe it or not, here in London, in Britain indeed, it was, I'm not sure of the exact figure, but it clearly is above 75%. It is easily above 75%. Yep, and I know a good few thousand people here in London. Clearly above 75%. Okay. And if that was a sample of the population here in London, and we extrapolate it across Britain, it is a terrifying figure. It is for these reasons why we share with you these lifestyle messages. These are important, acute messages that we need to hear, be reminded of its importance. So what we're heartened by, the number of you who've heard these messages, have understood their importance and have come together in common aim and common purpose of understanding if we work together, put our resources together, we can exercise together, more likely to sustain a healthier lifestyle. I want you to observe a few people who've come together in common aim and common purpose, have understood the importance of collective working, have understood in unity is strength. And together we can together transform our health and well-being. Watch this. These are a group of people who are now exercising. When I play it, please don't just sit there. Don't just stand there. Participate. It's only going to be 2 minutes, but it could be the most important 2 minutes of your day. That's right. Let's make the difference. That's right. Just stand up. Just move your legs now. Just move your legs. Just for 2 minutes. There you are. That's right. There you go. That's it. Exercise. Just for a few minutes. We want you to be here in 100 years' time. Watching the Demotivatorshow. Yes, healthy. Yes. own change makers. Yes. But even now, hold the hand of someone you love. Hold the hand of someone you have confidence in. And together, you can transform your health profile. Oh yes, that's the way to do it. That's right. Absolutely. There you go. See them? They're big and they're small. They're wide and they're thin. Yes. And together, they're transforming their health. They've even got their children there. You see that? That's it. They mean business. You see that? Yes, they're spreading. Oh, they mean business. They're spreading. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. That's the way to do it. I'm going to pause there. I just needed just for 2 minutes. I just need you to see that. People come together, common aim and common purpose, understanding. If they work together, they can stay healthier together. It is highly likely if you engage in such activities with other people, yeah, you're more than likely to sustain the habit because the support of others. When you're feeling a bit weak and down, you've got someone else to pick you up, and you do the same for that person as well. And together, you transform your health profiles. That's the way forward. And what I'm really pleased by, that organisation, Countdown, and as you know, they meet in fact, 2 evenings per week. I must say, I'm so immensely proud of their numbers have continued to grow. I'll put their details on the screen because if you're in London, in South London, want to pop in to see them, why not? Yep, there you go. There are the details on the screen. They meet every Monday and Wednesday between 6:30 and 8 p.m. They meet at 12 Tatum Street, Tatum Street, that's Walworth in London, and postcode S for sugar E17 1TN. And their email address, if you want to contact them, it's countdown0405@gmail.com. Telephone number, want to reach out to Ishmael, it's 07960 803 588. I commend the work of Countdown and similar organisations now emerge across London and Britain. This is community action, positive community action. And because together you can and you will transform your health profiles. Okay. I now understand that Ishmael and many others from Countdown will be at the London Marathon, which is, of course, on the 26th of April. Okay, they'll be at the London Marathon. I think I've got a little caption I can share with you about them. It's unfortunate. We would have loved to have had them here today, which would have made immense sense, Ishmael. I'll say no more on that. It would have made immense sense. But let me just put the details up on screen for you. You can see their details. There you are. This is Ishmael. There you are. Ishmael. He will be in the London Marathon. Yes. Yeah. And what he says here, I'm raising money to support our community health and fitness program and to support the British Heart Foundation. Yep. There you are. Well done, Ishmael. We support you. We support you. And it is because of people like him, Countdown and many similar organisations have sprung up across London. Support him. Support him if you can. Support Countdown and similar community-based health programs designed for you to get healthier. Yep. Minimal cost, but enormous social benefit. Well done, well done, well done, well done. And, watch the London Marathon. It's on the 26th of April. It is a worthwhile watch. Watch people from Countdown and others who've come together in common aim and common purpose, understanding if you work together, they can maintain good health and well-being, both physical, mental, and spiritual health. Well done, Ishmael. Sponsor him if you can. Sponsor him. Yeah, look for him. Go to the London Marathon website. You can sponsor him as well. As I said, if he's here, we have all the details. But there you go. We can possibly do that another time. Hopefully, he and the team will be on our next episode of The Motivator Show. Wait and see, huh? We'll wait and see. So well done to everyone there. Everyone, well done. And the last campaign issue, before we go to the main theme for today's show, is, of course, climate change. Yep, we've got to talk about it. I know it's not generally been talked about, only as an aside occasion in the mainstream news media. I get it, but this is the Motivator Show. We're not going to forget those issues which are of fundamental importance to you, your family, and to your children's children. Not going to forget. I know in some cases it's not popular. I get it, and I understand. But the Motivator Show is a place where our consciousness is arise. We're not directed by the mainstream media. We're clear on our intent that we tackle those issues that are not being discussed so that they are above the parapet and not below the parapet. And clearly, climate change is increasingly above the parapet, it's true. I'm based here in London. In 2025 winter, 2026, we had no snow. 30 years ago, we'd have had at least 6, 7, 8 inches of snow. This year, last year, we didn't experience any snow. And that's serious. 30 years hence, we could be as hot as the Sahara. Quite potentially. Because at this pace of increased temperatures, and note, in the past 5 to 7 years have been the hottest years across the globe. I'm worried. I don't know about you. I'm worried of the future we're leaving our children, indeed our grandchildren, because of our thoughtlessness, inaction, lack of action. But the Motivator Show will not fall into that category. We will continue to raise this issue as a cause for concern. Symptoms, the further symptoms of rising temperatures is the unusual weather patterns it generates. Yes, I've mentioned rising temperatures here in London. Just imagine what it's doing to the sea and the consequence it has on the global weather patterns. I now need to move to the Caribbean. In the past previous 2 years, there's Super Hurricane Beryl, a Category 4 hurricane, and Super Hurricane Melissa, a Category 5 hurricane, with winds of up to 187 miles per hour, more than 100 kilometers per hour. It caused devastation in places like Jamaica, Cuba, Haiti. Here on the Motivator Show, we are part of that renewal, reinstating, or indeed Build Back Better program. We want to support the people of Jamaica to get those public buildings back into use. Those public buildings include schools. There's an organisation based here in the UK called PNP UK. We want to be a part of that Build Back Better program and seeking to raise resources to build back better. With nearly 2.5 to 3 million Jamaicans and of course many friends and supporters of Jamaica. We can do this. We must do this. I want you to hear the account of a head teacher, school principal of a basic school in Jamaica. We call it here in the UK an infant school, because it's that baby, the very little one, 4-year-old, 3, 4, 5-year-old infant schools. She gives a public cry for resources so that school can be fully reinstated and build back better, so it can, indeed should be, hurricane proof. A perfectly reasonable campaign, huh? Hopefully you could help. But before that, let's listen to the principal. Listen to her compassion. Listen to her manner in which she carefully, calmly explains what has happened. And if you're not moved by her words, if you're not affected by this humble teacher's words, and yeah, listen to her, hear her words. PNP UK, Hurricane Melissa Disaster Relief Fund appeal for a better Jamaica.
Good morning, students. Say good morning, parents. Good morning, students. Today is What month are we in? We are in the month of January.
Everyone, I am Lexia Lewis Hines, principal of the New Building Early Childhood Institution in New Building, Nain, St. Elizabeth. We were adversely affected by the passing of Hurricane Melissa on October 28, 2025. And as such, we lost our school roof, we have lost furniture, books, and other learning materials for our young ones. I am hereby making a plea asking for any contribution that can be given to assist us in further renovating our school building so that our students can return to some semblance of normalcy. We have already received some donations and we're able to cover half the roof. The other half is patched up with the old zinc that was there from before. And as such, any contribution is an investment in our young ones, the future generation. And so this is my plea, asking for any contribution that can be given in assisting us to be better able to facilitate our young students. Thank you so very much.
New Building, Early Childhood School, New Buildings District, Nain, St. Elizabeth, Jamaica. On behalf of PNP UK, we hope you would agree that this school needs to be rebuilt so that the children can enjoy the teaching and learning experience. Support the Hurricane Melissa Disaster Relief Fund to build back better the school. Send your donation, whatever you can afford, to PNP UK. That's at NatWest Bank, sort code 600802, account number 298612333. And in the bank reference, please quote DRF Melissa. Thank you for considering. Thank you for your donations. PNP UK. There you are. And I hope you'd agree that is a worthwhile cause. You can see those little ones, those babies. Why should they suffer because of we, the adults, neglect? Yeah. And I want to give a thank you to PNP UK. I want to say a big thank you, the audience, who have been contributing. And we'll have a representative from PNP UK, maybe from the school, speak directly to us in the not too distant future. Full transparency, full accountability for every penny, every cent that is raised to build back better that school. One by one, we'll build back every school so it's resilient and it's indeed hurricane proof. Although at nearly 180, 200 miles an hour, oh my gosh, it's difficult to construct a building that can withstand that force. But if we don't try, there is no hope. And there is always hope. Okay? There is always hope. There is always hope. You are the hope. And well done, PNP UK. Well done, PNP UK. And together, we will make the difference. I now want to move to the main theme for today's podcast. I've become, whenever this subject comes forward, it is one that it is very challenging for me, because I've actually spoken to women directly who have shared, who've shared their testimony, their experience with me. It's difficult to speak on this subject and not feel immediately affected by their testimony. I'm not going to criticize those and their cultural practices. Okay. I am going to leave it to others to make those comments. Okay. But I am concerned that in the majority of countries around the world, FGM, female genital mutilation, is illegal, but it's still practiced in many countries. I pause because, as you can see in my dialogue with these remarkable human beings, okay, that they are raising consciousness of FGM's harmful impact. FGM, well, female genital mutilations, or female circumcisions, or simply the cut, might be known as, depending where you are in the world. Okay, you're right, absolutely right, to raise the consciousness to women, so they don't allow their girls. I should say the same for husbands and brothers, yes, fathers. You should also be aware of this as well. So your daughters do not, your sisters do not suffer. But I'm aware of another force, the traditional leaders, which I mentioned in my dialogue, which are not part of this conversation. And they should be. They must. And they will be in the future. So whilst I'm naturally happy, forward-thinking, optimistic person, and I remain and possess those characteristics, this is a very serious matter, and one that I smile because the future is bright. But between now and then, oh my gosh, there's much work we must do together. There is much work we must do together. And you don't have to be in an African culture which doesn't have it to be concerned. Because the person next to you meet in your everyday life may well be from a culture which is happening. And we are indeed our brothers and sisters keepers. I say again, we are indeed our brothers and sisters keepers. So their interest is our interest. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Their interest is your interest, our interest. So before I go to the main interview, the main dialogue, I want to play a part of the intro video, because many of you may well have missed it, which sets the context for the main dialogue. I know for some people, I just give you some warning, it may be triggering. It may trigger memories. It may trigger some anxiety. It may trigger, of course, those memories you want to suppress. And I absolutely understand. I do absolutely understand. But I'm equally understanding that there are many people for whom this information is new. It's critical that they receive the information. I remind you that we are all part of the process to eradicate a practice that it is physically, absolutely causing harm. As this dialogue reveals, also causing death, unnecessary death. So let's begin. I want to play a section of the intro video, so please, I understand each one of you. I understand how you feel, okay? But this is really important. This is the Demotivatorshow, because this is where we translate our words into action, because success is ours for the taking. Take a deep breath, absorb. This is the intro vid. Just watch this for a few minutes. Then we go to the main dialogue. I speak not from theory alone, but from a lifetime of watching what this practice does to women and girls. Female genital mutilation, FGM. It's often defended in the language of culture, honor, or preparation for womanhood. But strip away those words, and what remains is harm. Deep, lasting, and entirely avoidable harm. At its core, FGM is a deliberate injury or removal of healthy tissue from a girl's body. There is no medical benefit, none. What there is, however, is immediate danger, severe pain, shock, infection, and in some cases, death. I've known women who still remember the day with a clarity that borders on trauma. The fear, the restraint, the absence of consent. These are not small things. They shape a person's sense of safety in the world. But the damage does not end there. Many women live with lifelong complications, chronic pain, recurrent infections, and difficulties with menstruation are common. Childbirth, which should be a moment of strength and renewal, becomes far more dangerous. Women who have undergone FGM are at higher risk of prolonged labor, tearing, and even losing their babies. These are not rare occurrences. They are predictable consequences. There is the quiet harm, the kind that does not show in medical charts. FGM can profoundly affect a woman's intimate life. It can make relationship painful, diminish trust, and leave emotional scars that are difficult to articulate. We do not speak enough about that. We should. Some will say, this is tradition. I understand the power of tradition. I've lived long enough to respect it. But not all traditions are worth preserving. Practices that diminish, endanger, or silence women must be questioned. Culture is not static. It evolves, as it always has. We have abandoned harmful custom before. This should be no different. What troubles me most is that this is done to girls, children who have no say in the matter. It removes their autonomy before they're even old enough to understand it. And once done, it cannot be undone. Let us be clear, protecting girls is not an attack on culture, it is the defense of dignity. Communities that turn away from FGM have not lost themselves, they have strengthened themselves. They have chosen health over harm, respect over fear. At this stage in my life, I have little patience for silence on matters like this. We know the consequences. We have the evidence. The question is not whether FGM is harmful. It is whether we are willing to act on what we already know. We already know. On what we already know.
This morning, I'm not standing in front of you as the mayor of Southwark, not as a councillor, not as an ambassador, as a survivor of FGM, as a survivor of FGM, as a survivor of FGM. Talking about my own genitalia or anybody is not something that can happen so lightly. But it takes courage from a person to come out and speak, to change tomorrow, to change the future. And that's why I say no to shame, no to shame, no to shame. And I refuse to be silenced. 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 I refuse anything that had happened to me when I was a child, against my wishes, and no one consented or asked me for permission. I was young. I was naive. I was not able to make any choice or even pick up. Can you imagine? 6 years old going through that. But before I tell you, FGM is being practiced in almost 98 countries. In every country, there are many cultures. So when I speak, you need to know, like, I'm not speaking for every culture, because it might be different. But the fact, the truth is, it's done to a girl almost in the same way. They might call it type 1, type 2, type 4, but the thing is, they slice, they cut a part of us. And that's what I'm talking about. The women I loved, the women who are there to protect me, they were not horrible. They were not kind of like doing it because of abusing me, child abuse or anything. They did it because of love. Otherwise, they never had any voice. They have to practice. They have to do it. Otherwise, they will lose. They'll be kicked out. They thought that to protect me and to be accepted, I have to go through it. Blood. For many, they die as a result of overbleeding. For many, because of the infection. And blood. For many, they die as a result of overbleeding. For many, because of the infection. And blood. For many, they die as a result of overbleeding. For many, because of the infection. And
It does seem, and I've done many long hours of study on this, it's to traditional leaders, whether the clan leader or the tribal chiefs, those who are seen as being monarchs, who seem to be the persons who seem to be continuing or wanting the practice to continue. And yes, you are on the outside pushed them backward, that's true. But I want to keep pressing you on this point. Because I said that whenever I speak to people from that part of the world, right across that, you mentioned the countries, Sudan, Somalia, Kenya, Uganda. I'm like, keep pressing them on the traditional leaders and their role in this. They always want to back away from it. I need to face it. This is the motivator show, you see. So all the evidence seems to focus on those people as being the custodians of culture and traditions, the ones who need to be convinced that this culture and tradition needs to change for the sake of our women. Am I right? I'm testing you both on this point, but it does seem to me to be a junction point. Am I right or am I wrong in my assessment?
You know what? You really have given me a lot of insight, because the way we are looking at empowering, educate women, do this, make sure you access service. But I want it. If I go there, I will. But at the same time, it's more like you have touched something that maybe we haven't been doing it in a way that bring them and tell us what you think about it. But unfortunately, our conversation in the Western world is completely different when we are in Africa, I'm telling you. We can't talk openly. Everything is somehow limited in a way. When we go, we cannot talk to our elderly in a way. Obviously, we do respect our elders, our religious leaders, but sometimes it is good for us to sit with them and tell them the pain that we've gone through and we're still going through. It is good for us to sit with them and tell them the pain that we've gone through and we're still going through. it is good for us to sit with them and tell them the pain that we've gone through and we're still going through. And I think this is a conversation that I believe we should start continuing. And I think by just talking to you, you have shown me something that I haven't looked at more before. And thank you to you.
I speak not from theory alone, but from a lifetime of watching what remains is harm. I have known women who still remember the day it cannot be undone. We are willing to act so that we can stop female circumcision now. We are willing to act so that we can.
They are willing to act so they can stop FGM, female genital mutilation, female circumcision, the cut now. That was the intro. Set the scene, I know. I get it. Don't worry, I feel you. Trust me, I feel you. But we must face this. Yeah. Because this practice is having a debilitating impact on women and girls. Long-term debilitating impact. Negative impact, if you like. Okay. The impact is long-lasting. The physical trauma is self-evident. The psychological, mental trauma is increasingly evident. And if you don't talk about it, it remains almost hidden. So people, millions of people, suffer in silence. No. We must shine the cold light of day on the issue. And those who are the leaders, the custodians of culture and traditions, those who recall, those who insist that culture and traditions should be adhered to, they're the ones we need to ensure fully understand the implications of their guidance, of their diktats, their direction to the people. Now it's time for you to watch this wonderful dialogue, two wonderful human beings. Now, you must forgive us the first few minutes of the dialogue. The sound, it's a little uncertain, but it improves as it progresses. So stay with it. It is the content. The content is evidence to you. Okay. Take a deep breath. I know. But it's so important that if you haven't watched a program of this type before, you need to watch it. I need you to help us to spread the word. I say again, we need you to help us to spread the word. And if you haven't subscribed to the Demotivatorshow, Show, please subscribe. It really does help us to progress, to spread the words. Our success is your success. Your success is our success. Here we go. Here we go. This is the main dialogue.
Good morning. It's the motivator here.
This is where we translate our words into action, and where success is ours for the taking.
I'm the team, people. I'm the team. This is another conventional podcast. I've got two truly inspired African women with us today. And one of those women I know you'll be familiar with. She's a regular guest there. And yes, I'm not going to call her name. Oh, no. I'm not going to call her name. I'm assuring you, you'll find her truly inspired. Today's podcast will focus on that subject which we've been and we continue to refer to in each of our live podcasts, and that's the issue of FGM, female genital mutilation, or the cut, or circumcision, some people say. It is a serious matter. I want to smile, I want to be happy. I am smiling, I'm happy, but I have to today be absolutely focused. So we've got more than 200 plus 250 million or so women who are indeed FGM survivors. So today's podcast, we're going to look at this subject in depth. We've got two very capable, expert women who are able to provide first-hand accounts of this issue and also provide us with a roadmap for the future is that future, which is an optimistic, hopeful future for all women and girls who are in a culture in which this practice still continues, whether it be legal or below the line, which is very often the case. But we're going to address it, though. We are going to address it. It's going to be truly inspirational. So let's go to these wonderful women. Look at those proud, radiant African women. Look at those smile, David. Look at their smile. Oh, my God. Look at that. Let me go first of all to please. Can I ask you, please just say your name, the organisation, and I may have a follow-up question for you immediately thereafter. Just say your name and organisation, please.
I'm Huda Mohammed. I'm a midwife, work in NHS Trust in London, Whittington Hospital. I've been doing this over 17 years and as an FGM specialist midwife since 2017. I'm passionate about care, women's care and inequality and making the changes with the great country we live in, the UK, which things can change. We need collaboration. So thank you so much for having me today.
It is our pleasure, And can I ask you for that, and thank you for that, but that's 17 years of an enormous amount of your lifetime devoted to this subject, subject. Do you come from a culture in which FGM still features as part of a sort of a daily practice for women and girls?
Yeah, I'm from East Africa, Horn of Africa, Somalia. 98% of women and girls undergo FGM, so it's higher prevalence. And believe me or not, since 1974, it's been illegal. Having said that, because of traditional and culture, and children and women still have been undergoing FGM. So it's an issue that we have ongoing. We have come a long way. There's a lot of awareness. Women like Anima, Ali here, we're not stopping talking about it. And our family's been saved from this barbaric practice. So what shows is through education, empowerment, and knowledge, talking about it in a podcast, just like yourself, will make a lot of difference. And the women who are living in the UK through education, engagement, that their children will be saved. So unless we talk about it, it's very difficult subject to talk about. It's very sort of hidden in the background. So the more we talk about it, the more we have shows like this, then hopefully we'll end. But in my country, still today, 98% of girls are undergoing FGM, and mainly it's happening at the age of 8, from 8 years old. So when the children, actually, women we see in our clinic, are women who remember that they've been cut and they live with a trauma for everlasting in their lives. Yeah, and it just live differently. Yeah.
Thank you. We're going to have to delve more into that, I think. Gosh, from 8 years onwards. Oh, dear me.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I'm going to talk to you more about that, and already I'm affected by that. I have daughters here. Anyway, thank you. That's you've most certainly set the scene. And anyway, I can go to you, Naima, counsellor, indeed, Naima Ali. We're going to get here on the Motivator Show, and it's good to see you. Good to see you. How are you, first of all? How are you?
I am doing very well. Thank you so much for having me. Councillor Seaton, my work colleague. Of course, I am not new to your show. I might say I'm Councillor Naima Ali, and I'm an FGM ambassador for SADC. But today, and I'm also the patron of Unshackled Duma, the organization that I started myself back in 2019. And also, I'm I'm here today as an FGM survivor, speaking for millions of girls who've been cut. While I'm also becoming their voice. I mean, the voice of the voiceless. That's why I'm here today.
Well said. Thank you. And as you're aware that in each of our live shows for the past 40 months or so, we have mentioned
Naima Ali, FGM ambassador for Southwark in London, is the founder of Unshackled Duma. Unshackled Duma is a London-based organisation that empowers women and girls, particularly from Black, Asian and world majority community and Muslim communities. The organisation focuses on promoting self-empowerment, autonomy and advocacy with a strong emphasis on combating female genital mutilation, FGM. It raises awareness about FGM's harmful effects and supports survivors and works towards eradicating the practice. Unshackled Duma can be contacted via this email address: unshackleduma followed by digit2@gmail.com. I repeat, unshackleduma followed by digit2@gmail.com.
Okay, and encouraging women and girls, and I should say men as well, to reach out to you to give you support for what is an important campaign. Yeah. Thank you for that introduction. That's really
Can I
a great help.
just say, so
Mhm.
just a quick one anyway, obviously, unshackled Duma, they just to understand, unshackled, obviously everyone can understand the meaning. Duma means women in Somali, and shackle is more like chain, liberate, but we are not talking about some other thing, it's just to help women feel empowered and free and have that control of their voices and their bodies and everything.
Thank you for that additional information, clarifying the meaning of the word.
Unshackled Duma.
And that's indeed, and I have heard you say this previously, so thank you for picking up on that. It does help. But it does also bring to you both and really understanding this subject. Every time I read and study, first of all, it's the emotional entanglement. I just find it really strange that a practice that involves what effectively is mutilation of a woman's most intimate parts is allowed to continue. But am I right in saying that this practice has existed before the Christian era, before Islam and before the Christian era? Because I've got evidence that go back, what, 2.5 to 3,000 years. Would I be right in saying that this is something that's been around for a long time? Either one of you can respond. What would you say? Am I right in my research?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm,
So
mhm,
this is like ancient 2,000 years in
mhm,
Egyptian era used to happen.
mhm,
So
mhm.
it's been there for a long time, and they did it
Yes.
traditionally before 25 years before BC. So it's been around for many years,
Mhm,
many
mhm.
years.
Research suggests that I could look at Egypt, Sudan, maybe parts of Ethiopia, apparently, as we come down to Somalia, of course, we've mentioned, and go around the Horn, let's see, the Kenya, thank you, Kenya, and part of Uganda. Yes, but yeah, and what I'm puzzled by, and again, because I'm not in a culture which this has been part of that tradition. It's why would women permit it? Because in African culture, women have a voice. Yeah, women have a voice in African culture. Why would women permit it? And equally, being a man, I can't understand why a man would be happy that their wives have been cut in this manner. How would you respond? Maybe, Naima, you're
You,
animated right now. Go on, you
you know,
respond to what I've said. Yeah.
I am laughing anyway, in a way. There is, honestly, FGM is being practiced by so many, over 30 countries in Africa. Every
Yes.
culture, they do for their own different reason. How they perceive, how they do is different. But I will tell you, for example, when it was done to our parents, grandparents, they never
Mm-hmm.
had that massive voice. It's because it's being practiced, it's like you have to do it. If you don't do it, you're not kind of like accepted. And I will just tell you, for example, even with me, when it was done to me, at that moment when you're a child, because it is like you have to be accepted. It's more like a passage of, like becoming a woman. I
Right,
wanted to
precisely.
feel like I'm part of. So I remember the excitement I was going through at that moment. Little did I know that when you become adult, so you have your first encounter. I don't want to mention so much about it.
Hmm.
It kind of makes you think like, why did I accept? But to be honest, no woman could have accepted. Coming to men, our men, and I will clearly say, when this is happening to young girls, men are not involved. Back in Africa, for example, the men, they leave home early in the morning, come at night, but this is more like between the woman who is cutting and the mom, especially the women. Those are the ones. And the men, they're kind of like, because it is something that is accepted, it's practiced, by then no man could allow a woman who is not cut. It's different now because the message is going across. A lot of men are saying we cannot do to our women. Thankfully, in the Western world, we are becoming more outspoken and we are educating ourselves. We are being educated. We've got amazing laws that protect us. We are free. Because right now, the way I speak, I can assure you a woman in Africa cannot speak that much. Even for me, if I go to the village, I cannot speak the way I'm speaking now because I have to find the best way possible. But when I
Hmm.
take you back, when you say, where did it, if you look at FGM, it had got nothing to do with religion at all. But when you just look at it in a way, it's mainly majority Islamic countries where
Why is
mostly
that?
Islamic dominated.
Why is
But
that?
that is what now I'm thinking. I am thinking like it has my own, the world we are in. Anything that is good, everybody will put up their hand, will say, I'm behind it. It's my success. But anything that is bad, nobody wants to be associated with. And that is why no country, no community can take to say like this is actually coming from us because there's no proper justification of what benefit it has. But with my own way of seeing, obviously there is this type 3. I don't know when that name came up. Type
Can
3
I?
where they cut everything.
Forgive me. Before you go into that, I did want to just stick with the sort of, historical context. I don't want to talk about the process, the procedure themselves at the moment. Just get some historical context. So
Yeah.
historically, before Islam era, before the Christian era, um, female circumcisional cut, or FGM, as we were now calling it,
Mm.
was being practiced by the people. What I'm trying to understand is the reason. Now, you describe it being a rites of passage, an expression of purity, I think is your word. Is that right?
Yeah.
That is right. Any other sort of cultural expression that this practice is supposed to support? Is it purely a rites of passage, or is there a demand from the men for this to happen? I'm just trying to understand what is that underlying dialogue that's happening amongst the people. Maybe you can give me some fill in that gap for me. I just want to understand what is it? Why would men condone the practice? Notwithstanding that men are not involved, but why would men condone the practice? Do you think?
You know what? One
Mhm.
reason, sorry, quickly, I'll just say for one
Okay.
second. When you ask, for example, why do we practice FGM? Why? The main thing is to preserve virginity. Who are you preserving the virginity for? Men, right? Obviously. And we can go more and more on that. And the other thing is with me, I will just clearly say it's more for controlling, making the women not have that massive, although it's another topic as well where that the women who've been cut has to, feeling or anything like that, which is obviously yes, but obviously the cut has impacted more. And
Okay.
it's very much of controlling and right of passage and that. I've heard that maybe
Okay.
you can add on to something if you want.
Agree with you because in different cultures they do it for different regions. For example, in sub-Saharan Africa and in Eastern Africa, they may do for religion requirements or traditional requirements. So it's hidden behind religion. So when you say religion, for example, Islamically, if there's a belief that women should be cleaned, cleansed, and circumcision comes in. So the hierarchy, we're talking about women who, like the grandmother, the aunties, there's always some other who's controlling this. And then he goes into, he controls virginity, it's more clean for the woman. And so the kind of I'm back in educating men that they believe circumcised women are pure, virgin, saved. And of course, the myth is going to go, and for hundreds of years, that's what they've been believing in. What we know now through education empowerment, that game is changing, but it's done before because of religion requirements, and which we don't have base in that now. There's no evidence it's requirement religiously. And places like in Ethiopia, they have Christian and Muslim, and they both do it because of traditional belief. And I've seen women who've been the only women that cut in generations in family because they just simply moved to that country. She was born in that era, and she's the only woman that been cut from whole family, not even her mother. So you can see how this is in Africa. It's just traditional cultures, believing men believing that women are more cleaner, more safer, and perceive virginity. It's that kind of power for women, for men as well, to feel, okay, I'm marrying 100% women who's virgin. Okay. What we know now is the more we talked about the younger men, actually now the dating, when they actually dating, they will ask whether girls been circumcised or not, because they believe circumcised girls are not, because the myth again, and they're telling women that they have no feelings, they have. But 98% women who undergone FGM, the parts are still intact. Okay, and it's about empowering women, educating women about their body, having access to healthcare professional clinicians like ourselves, so we can find for them, like I said, and empower women about trauma. When you go in trauma, it doesn't matter where you experience trauma. Trauma stays in your body, and you remember that trauma. So women that have been cut at the age of 8, she remember those traumas. So you can see it's a game changer. If you live in the West, again, the law protects us as well. So women who's have had FGM now in the UK, for example, in the UK, they go through antenatal period, the woman identify they had FGM, and then they will see clinicians like myself who will empower them about the law, about their body, what's taken away from them, how they can feel whole as a woman. You understand? Men also will come to us, clinics, will also understand the impact has on the women's,
Okay, so we won't get too much away too soon yet. Yes, yet. No, still not. It's okay. It really was just the issue of what's happening in the countries themselves. Okay, let's take Somalia for example. Okay. So it does seem to me, and I'm on an outsider looking in, that all the symptoms and experiences of women in this country who are survivors. Okay, have been expressed here, and you are engaging with them in this country. It's clearly occurring in Somalia as well. Yeah, and if you say 98% of women have undergone this, they are survived. Let me continue that word. You are survived. I don't understand why the women are not sharing with other women, and indeed the wider society, of the post-traumatic impact of this experience. Somalia should be a good example. You should have many cases there where women are suffering from trauma from this process. Are you aware of a movement in the country where they've got that number of women, where now we're discussing not a few thousand, but millions of women, okay? Millions of women who've undergone the process, and they must have all the symptoms and the traumatic experience that you are treating now here in this country, which only runs into a few thousand, but in that country, it's millions of women. What's going on in that country? Why are the women not being heard? And why would men allow this to continue?
And maybe I will.
Okay.
You know what? We came from a culture where FGM, sex, things like that, it's not something that we can talk openly about. Okay. If we talk about women in Africa, for example, it takes so long for like every woman is different. You cannot just come and talk about your personal or lived experience openly. It comes with courage and confidence when you just say enough is enough. Same as me now, for example. To me, there is nothing shame to talk about when it comes to FGM and sex. I made that very clear because whatever that had happened to me, I won't allow it to happen to other women. But for many women, they are not there yet. We've got amazing activists. We've got amazing kind of like women campaigners. They are close. But if we say 10 years ago where we were and where we are right now, the movement is coming up. Because it's not only Somalis, because every country, Guinea, Sierra Leone, we have a lot of active women. But the thing is, it's more like us coming together and saying enough is enough. But we've got amazing international organizations such as United Nations, actually, and many other organizations also. Men, all this thing around shame is what stops people. And we need to encourage men to give. I can tell you that as soon as we talk anything about sex or FGM, for many it's not comfortable. So we've already started the talk. Many have joined, and many will be joining.
If I may, do you mean when you say shame, is that being expressed through religious leaders, or the politicians, or the traditional leaders who are saying this is a very shameful subject to discuss? Do the religious leaders do this? Is it the traditional clan leaders, or is it politicians who are suggesting even to discuss the subject is shameful? Doing this.
Well, I would give you a space to speak. When I smile when I talk about when you mention politicians, you know how open we are when it comes to being we can easily say I support, I don't. But when it comes to countries where FGM is being practiced, if you talk anything against your culture or something, you can easily lose your votes. And I remember, I'm not going to mention, I started when I was mayor. I had an opportunity to sit next to a very, very powerful, influential woman, as soon as she clearly said, yes, I'm a survivor. But because she's protecting her husband's seat, she cannot talk about FGM. She clearly not said that I support, I am not against FGM. But at the end of the day, these are the kind of people that we are looking at. When it comes to religious leaders, I'll give them, honestly, they do talk about it. But the thing is, where will they talk about it? If they talk to men, they might be communicating about it, but we need to have that open space. I remember going to Kenya, Nairobi, and seeing religion sitting at the table where a few imam came and started talking about it. But to be honest, we've got a long way to go. So our men, we need to start with our own men first. How is my husband seeing it? And what is my son saying about it? Because if I don't talk to my son, tell them that they should only say, I clearly will marry an uncut women. So the women will panic now. And the thing is, when we talk about 98%, we need to make it clear. This is more of our generation. This other generation, it is not happening like before, especially around big cities. Said Huda can correct me if I'm wrong. But outside in rural areas, high possibility. It hasn't gone, but that 98% is still. But unfortunately, there is no way that they can get an accurate data of women who've been cut.
If I may, yes,
If I add to, so your question was why still women practicing this and why still women doing to women, right?
Yes. How is it possible for it to continue?
Yeah, so the difference is women are, when they're exposed to education, when you empower women about their body and they have the freedom to feel this is wrong, then they will stop doing to their children. So like me said, 98% is the statistic, but we know rural area, they're changing. Why? Through champions, through survivors who are talking about their stories, through education. So to me, education is powerful. And women who come to my clinic, we connect the two together. There's no way she'll do it to her daughter. But before, they were doing it traditionally. It's like a tick box. You got a daughter, she has to go through a certain, no one asks question. But now we know, in those who live in educated areas where the big cities, they're talking about, they're campaigning against female genital mutilation. Men are involved. Politicians, they are quite right. They don't want to, stare and start troubles, and they don't really want to talk about it. It's a great example, for example, in Egypt. Before, 98% were done by healthcare professionals, but now they legalize with the healthcare professionals. If they attempt to do FGM, they would lose their license. What does that mean? more educating the healthcare professionals and the community. No one wants to lose their bin number or do this to children. And the police are involved, and the law is strengthened. So places like that, they would come away from practicing because I cannot do this because I will lose my lifelong income, right? So I think countries are still practicing. For example, in Kenya, there's a lot of movement in the community. International money was putting in to end FGM. We need so much collaboration. No, those fundings are cut at the moment. So there's no money going in, I believe, in Kenya, for example. There's some projects like they were going on for quite a while at the moment that they cut their coming to end, and shamefully. And that would meaning that women might not have access to those information or champions. So I think to me it's through movement, education, survivors sharing their story, talking about it, the impact it has on women. And also at the beginning, I said each survivor has her own story to tell. So for example, classic example, if you are in Malaysia, about 8 million women are cut each, by healthcare professionals. They cut us in infancy. You very type 1. No one talks about it. You cannot see sometimes the naked eye, but there's a history of FGM down there, okay? And because of traditional or culture or religion reasons. You've got the sub-Saharan African and all Africa in different regions, they do it because of traditional. You've got spiritual as well, people who believe in, if I do this to my daughter.
But Uda, forgive me. My answer to my question is, where's the driver? If the driver to continue the practice coming from, say, in Somalia, like clan leaders, so they're the custodian of the culture, or is it coming from the religious leaders because they see it as being part of the religious adherence? Or I think you both discounted the politicians. Okay? But I suppose that let's focus on the clan leaders, tribal leaders, or indeed the religious leaders. Are they the ones?
We are now, yeah. I have to say that where we are today now, the leaders, actually, religion leaders, are the more focal than any leaders at the moment. We're against this, okay? But also, for example, in Gambia recently, they wanted to pass they wanted to pass the law again where FGM would be legal to cut daughters, and that was led by religion and men who wanted this to be done to their daughters.
Right. Good. So the traditional leaders or clan leaders? What about
yes.
Okay. Because I've been speaking to African monarchs and a few clan leaders who make themselves known to me because they tend to be quite secretive, I noticed. But anyway, I won't go to that right now. And they seem to hold themselves as being the custodians of culture and tradition. And where you have a culture and tradition of this type, that they see that as being important, that they should continue that culture and tradition. And it does seem to me, as I look at this, that if the traditional leaders, the tribal chief, the clan leaders, are not on side, then we're always going up a steep hill. They're the ones who we respect and therefore bow our heads to and therefore give reverence to as the upholders of our culture and traditions. I told you both on that, but you both keep skirting around it, you see. So I want to poke it further. The clan leaders in Somalia, the tribal leaders that are recognized in Kenya. Okay, are you in touch with them? Is there a separate forum for those traditional leaders in which you therefore have the opportunity to educate them on the impact of FGM or what they might call the cut? Is there?
I think I will allow this Nemo to answer first, but she does not work around Kenya, and she give us the latest.
I love talking about my own kind of like lived experience of what I have experienced on firsthand. Because I've been in the Western world almost for 30 plus years. I managed to travel. It wasn't long last year when I was kind of like mayor and then supporting Action Aid. Going to a village talking about FGM. That is one of and it is 2020, it was 2025. Sitting under a big tree, that's usually where it happens. You can see like there was some culture over the elder men, elderly, and a bit of like when they were talking, it wasn't so powerfully. Like you should stop. If you stop, this is what will happen to you. That is what is missing. Everyone will say like they are not very confident talking about the actual thing that is happening to women. Nobody has ever, I think, explained to them what it actually means to women. Because I remember standing there and explaining to them, especially type 3 FGM, so openly, like where they were like, their facial expression was like, really? Because it's more like human when you're going to your woman for his pleasure. Do you really care about what she's going to, even if she's a mother of 5 or 6? Because the trauma that she experienced at the beginning. But that is what is missing. We cannot just say, oh, we need to stop. Why did it happen at the beginning? Why did it happen? And what is your role as a leader?
But no,
How do
but
you want to
Neighbour,
say?
hold on, Neighbour. Again, you're both doing this. It does seem, and I've done many long hours of study on this, it's to traditional leaders, whether the clan leader or the tribal chiefs, those who are seen as being monarchs, who seem to be the persons who seem to be continuing or wanting the practice to continue. And yes, you are on the outside pushed them backward, that's true. But I want to keep testing you on this point. Like I said, whenever I speak to people from that part of the world, right across that, you mentioned the countries, Sudan, Somalia, Kenya, Uganda. I'm like, keep testing them on the traditional leaders and their role in this. They always want to back away from it. I need to face it. This is the motivator show, you see. So all the evidence seems to focus on those people as being the custodians of culture and traditions, the ones who need to be convinced that this culture and tradition needs to change for the sake of our women. Am I right? I'm testing you both on this point, but it does seem to me to be a junction point. Am I right or am I wrong in my assessment?
You know what? You really have given me a lot of insight because the way we are looking at empowering, educate women, do this, make sure you access service. But I wanted, if I go there, I will. But at the same time, it's more like you have touched something that maybe we haven't been doing it in a way that bring them and tell us what you think about it. But unfortunately, our conversation in the Western world is completely different when we are in Africa, I'm telling you. We can't talk openly. Everything is somehow limited in a way. When we go, we cannot talk to our elderly in a way. Obviously, we do respect our elders, our religious leaders, but sometimes it is good for us to sit with them and tell them the pain that we've gone through and we're still going through. And I think this is a conversation that I believe we should start continuing. And I think by just talking to you, you have shown me something that I haven't looked at more before. And thank you to you.
And
Thank you.
also, yeah, it's been going on, like we said, hundreds of years. You can't just overturn just like that. So this woman who lives in Africa now, exactly. This woman who's living in Africa now, she's wearing the traditional hat, she's wearing the culture hat, she's wearing the daughter hat, she's wearing the, protecting her family hat. The man is the breadwinner. So you can see the politics around it. Where she lives, it depends on where we have access. She might not even have an access to awareness, how it affected her on her own life, FGM. And there's a great example, for example, there's a project in Kenya I really liked whereby families were protected by the champions and survivors of FGM. They were going to the community, rural community. If they had daughters, they were making sure the daughters are educated. And through education, they were also saving them from early marriage. So some parts of Kenya, and Nemo can add on this, by the time they reach 14, they're right for marriage. So what that means, they undergo FGM, they will sell them for cows or small money. But in that pathway, they have to also cut their daughters in that journey. So how do they do this? Amazing champions of women who could go to the rural areas in the towns. They will educate the girls, so they will bring the girls to school. So they won't be exposed to, so they're exposed to education. They will remove them from their family, so they'll be safe from being cut. They'll be saved from early marriage. So you can see the politics and ideology behind it. It's not just the culture and religion. It's more than that. It's impacting poverty, prevalence and the income. So if you have a daughter, it's an income for those families. Few cows will save their lives. You understand? So it's a politics. It's a money involved. It's a proud to be traditionally cut because that's what they do at the age of 8. Young women will tell you in my clinic when they come to me. I remember being in that season of a cut, waiting for her turn because that's normalized in the community. But where now it's not normalized because we know the effect, the impact, the health. Like Naima said, in the West we talk about. In cultures, no one talks about feelings or sexual intimacy. It's not heard of in our community, Muslim community, far from it. Yeah. So there's so many blockage where women will not have access. Where in the West, we're talking about it, we're identifying them in pregnancy. Majority of data collected in this country is the maternity services and the community champions. Because maternity will, let me just say that in maternity will ask everyone, regardless of their race, if you have anything with genital. And you'd be surprised of one woman I see in my clinic who had undergone vaginal anesthesia, who had undergone FGM, occurrences, you understand? So the wider...
Before you go there, it's okay. I'm there with you. As I said, you both keep bouncing off it, you see. That, you see, having spoken to...
we can really talk about in a small... Unfortunately, it's a wider topic.
I'm aware that this podcast will be seen and heard by monarchs, clan leaders, religious leaders, the traditional chief will hear this. Okay? And I know from experience in interacting with them that they are the custodians and they can say yes or no. And if a practice is to change, if a king says, a monarch says, this practice is now banned, it will change. If a clan leader decrees that this practice is no longer a part of us, it will not happen. Yep. If I know that from experience, I've met hundreds of them from across the continent, and their power, in many cases, quite absolute. Absolute. They control the direction of their culture and the tradition that will be practiced. So, but I hear you. I hear you. I think I want to move forward now because I want to come back to Britain. I want to come back to Britain. So I'm going to pause for a moment.
As I was saying, I now want to come to Britain. In fact, no, I want to come to London. From an African perspective, London is a melting pot for the entire African continent. Here, you'll find people from right across the continent living here in London. In fact, in the borough that I live in, has the highest concentration of West Africans in the country alone, in this borough that I live in. So I would imagine that the NHS therefore comes across women from right across the spectrum and absolutely come across women who have had this, who are FGM survivors. So, Buddha, I would turn to you now, because I would imagine yours is a very demanding and complicated job. Because you encountered so many women, African women, from all these countries, who, if they lived in those countries, would very rarely come in contact with each other. Here in London, you absolutely come across them. So I want to ask something quite intrusive of you. When you meet a woman from, let's say, Sudan or Uganda or Kenya, who have experienced FGM, what is your first thought about them? Do you see them as being akin to women from Somalia? How do you view them first?
I mean, I view them as a woman who has a right to have a right to live and have a right to her body. I see them as individual. I see them as a woman who come from a different background, rich, beautiful, cultural, traditional, one thing in common. They've been violated as children. Their rights was taken away as a woman. To be a woman it's the hormonal changes, it's childbearing ages. We all got so many complications as a woman coming into new country. So that woman, when she come to my clinic, she will bring her traditional, her culture, her beauty. But one thing, the rights were taken away from her childhood. Cut when they were 8. Some of them don't even remember they were cut. They will only be identified at age. Yes, they don't even have the recollection. And their families don't even bother telling them all. Yeah.
That's okay. And of course, not only from that part of Africa, in other words, from Egypt right down the east coast, as it were, northeast down to the eastern part.
And please don't forget the Middle East as well. In Middle East,
I'm going to come to that. I may come to that, but I want to go to West Africa.
yeah.
I want to come to West Africa, where I see many women, particularly here in Southwark, where I reside, which has the largest concentration of West African women in the country here in this part of London, where FGM is also amongst their culture and tradition. So my initial question was how do you view them? My second question for you is in terms of awareness of these women, of the potential harm or what has actually happened to them, would you say that women from West Africa, from Nigeria, Mali, Burkina Faso, Ghana, versus women from Uganda, Somalia, Sudan, do you see different levels of awareness amongst those women in terms of what has actually happened to them and the consequences of what's happened? Do you see
I see women in different, yes, you can see different awareness and also different anger. Okay. So if you're coming from a traditional, yes. So if you're coming from traditional practice community that happened to you because of it was God's will, it happened to you, so you move on with your life. You've got younger women who, for example, particularly Nigerian community, who were cut and never been disclosed that they were cut to the work from their perpetrators or the mother who ever done this to them, and they're only finding out through complications or during childbirth. So you can see they're growing up as women knowing there's something wrong with them, but they couldn't really point when they talk about intimacy with their friends, how they feel, how they are, all the things that they talk about. She felt different. No one ever told her. Well, they're telling her they were cut because it's hidden, or no one actually shared this information with her. She was done when she was just a newborn baby. So you can see the anger there. She will go to a maternity setting. The question will be asked, will identify at age of 27. She will link all the problems that she was having. So that creates anger, resentment to the community, resentment to their mother's relationship she had with her partner. She's thinking about all different kinds. You can see.
Is that in the main?
Women,
hold up. So is that in the main women from West Africa, this anger, or are you seeing mainly from women from
Asian? So imagine at the age of 27, you're only finding out that you've been cut. For example, communities from it, exactly. Community from Ethiopia, they don't talk about genitalia. So women who's been cut would never have known unless she come to settings like maternity, she's pregnant. And that's the only time she will ask the question. And she'll say, maybe yes, I come from community practice. She'll come to the clinic, we'll explore different types, we'll consent her for, and that's the only time when we do the assessment, she will find out that she's been cut. And that her journey starts for her. All the problems she was having, that's the result of the cutting. Yeah? You have a woman who is having...
That's okay. That's okay. Don't worry, I get it. So it's in terms of awareness levels, it can vary regardless of country. In their consciousness of the
country, regardless of the traditional, how they talk about FGM and female circumcision. So it depends on the culture. So, for example, when you're talking about East African, they know they were cut at the age of, so they remember the trauma, and they still that trauma also blocks them from going for healthcare checks, for going through smear screening, pregnancy complications. Suddenly, they go back to the 8-year-old daughter when they were cut, when they're coming, especially the trauma might just trigger when they go into the childbearing, in labor. They might suddenly just block and go into space that they're very scared. So the answer is very complex and very personalized, and it's very really. So I cannot really see how women, when you ask me a question, how you see women when they come to my clinic, I see that beautiful woman that walk in my room, and then you aim back to complication and you open that door for female circumcision that they're going through, and that impacts the pain they're going through, the physical pain they go through, the intimacy problem they're going through. That's what the leaders and and religion leaders need to understand impact it has as a woman. A woman going childbirth, their anatomy being disturbed, they have got scar tissue, they're not. Everything's designed for a reason. They've been designed, it's been disrupted. So they will go through the scar pain, they will go through the complication as a result of FGM. They might go unnecessary cesarean section if they don't have the right settings. They might die in Africa during childbirth. So
dying?
Not really. They will die during the childbirth if they don't have the right clinicians. They will have incontinence.
Forgive me. Just if I capture that, because it's part of research. Is the procedure, as it were, dangerous? Because clearly the fact that it's so prevalent implies it must be successful. In other words, women are not dying as a result of having this. Huh?
Yeah, it's very dangerous. So recently, Birmingham University did a study, and what they find out that every 12 minutes, a child will die as a result of FGM, as a result of bleeding. Yes.
No.
Every 12 minutes.
Every 12 minutes?
Every 12 minutes. A child will die as a result of cutting.
Every 12 seconds?
Did a conducted every 12 minutes. Every 12 minutes. I think it's changed. Maybe it's every 12 months. The latest research from University of Birmingham. Every 12 minutes, if I recall.
But hold on, if I may, I can't escape over that one. That's pretty serious, isn't it? That's pretty serious. Are these reports shared with the national government, like Somalia, for example? Would you share those stats with the national government in Somalia? This is what you're finding here in the UK, that every 12 minutes, a woman dies, a complication, all told through FGM.
A girl dies every 12 minutes because of female genital mutilation. A research being conducted at Birmingham University, that's a fact. The fact women will suffer long-term complications such as infertility problems. There's different type 1, type 2, type 3. Women who had undergone type 3 FGM initially were married by the age of 16, 18, they were married off. Women are waiting longer. And what that means for them, they have infertility problems, they have complication of recurrent UTIs, they're having problems with renal failures, they're having mental problems, they will having smear, they're not doing smear screening, a woman will end up with cervical cancer. Yeah. So this is a trauma that's a lot of...
What I want to do is just give the information in gradual doses so that the audience can take it on board. You see, it's okay, don't worry.
Yeah.
I'm here to make sure. What I want to do, if I may, before you go into detail, we want to do it gradually so that it can be fully absorbed. I just want to understand something here. I understood that the majority of girls for whom this procedure has happened to, it happens to them when they're babies, so they're not fully conscious it has happened. And so you mentioned 8 years old. Is that 8 years old a tradition in Somalia, or is it actually the majority when they're babies, when they're not conscious? Who can answer that question?
Continue. No, continue, because from my understanding, from age 5, but mainly from age 6 and going up, so it doesn't matter. Yeah. In Somalia, also when in country of Somalia, there are so many different parts of Somalia. You know, the Somalis have migrated to different parts of Africa. So Somalia and Kenya, Somalia and Tanzania will almost have similar practice to Somalis in Somalia. So we Somalians, wherever we're coming from, that name is where we're going to carry. So majority is from 6 and above, but it seems like high population is age 8. But obviously at that age...
I've got that. And who? This for you. So stats I've had here from King's College Hospital, forgive me, a local hospital to us here, suggest that the majority, it happened to them when they were babies. Quite a number of, there's a local exercise group here, in fact, one that we promote here on the Demotivatorshow. And they are mainly from West Africa. It does appear there, it appears to happen when they're babies, so that they can't recall it happened to them. Is that the majority you encounter, Huda?
Can I quickly add on to something? Sorry. Can I just add on to a quick thing? It depends with different communities, different cultures. But I can tell you a fact of something that I was so shocked about recently when I went to Kenya. I went to the village and immediately there was a report at that moment that they were talking about a small baby of 6 months old now, because they know if they cut girl, they can easily be, be in trouble. So now what did they do? They've been cutting small girls, like saying the tip of the clitoris, they said it got worms or parasites. So what they so I shouldn't be using. So they cut it on across and say the worms have gone in, and then that gives them more excuse of cutting it completely. And that is a 6-month-old baby. So from that community, they do cut kids when from the young.
Much
And
younger.
then some communities who cut the women when they're just getting married.
Oh my gosh.
Just a day before they're getting married.
Wow.
Yeah. So there is so many. You can hear very weird stories. Yeah.
I don't want to get to, because you're actually engaging and treating these women, particularly in childbirth.
So it depends. It depends on the going back to the question. It depends on the country. It depends on the timing of the child traveling. For example, women who come in to the West, they might just do as they're traveling, enjoying their family, moving to the
I
UK.
understand.
Majority, it depends on the country. So if you look in the Asian community, for example, Malaysia, South and Far East, will be from infancy. If you look in Africa, it varies. Yeah. So if you look at the sub-Saharan Africa, Horn of Africa, East Africans, it would be from age 4, maybe upwards up to 9. So some countries, they will do, even Israel, I heard women will be cut in their deathbed if they were not circumcised.
Oh
so
my
if they
gosh.
were dead, and yes, they were cut. They would be cut to be pure and clean. Okay, so women can be cut at any age. I've met women who've been cut at the age of 16. I've met women who disclosed to us they were cut when they were 16 because to fit in the culture. I met women who say she was cut at the age of 32 years old because her partner was part of the cult who were in somewhere in Kenya, and she has to fit to that cult, and in order for her to be, she was circumcised. And sadly, that woman was also healthcare professional, because to meet, you love your partner for love's sake, they were doing this. So the age varies, but when we're looking at the children, it's a child abuse. And one thing I want to say and really echo here, there's no way we can qualify, we can nicely talk about FGM. FGM is horrific. It's an violation of human rights for the women. So there's no way I can sugarcoat and say, nicely talk about it. The effects on have a woman, the moment they cut, you cannot reverse it back. It's a lifelong complications. And the women I see...
Let me ask that question.
Yes.
Because as you now getting into, there are various types or levels of so-called mutilation. Okay. Without being graphic, and just bear in mind this remains a family, I know it's difficult to sugarcoat it, as you say, but I want you to just level 1. What might that, without being overly graphic, what might that entail?
So level 1, no matter whether it's 1 or 2 or 3, they're all the same. It's barbaric practice. It's violation of a human right. So there's no benefit either way. However, when it comes to women during childbearing age, women who's got significant type 1, type 2 might not have such a complication because already the office of the vulva is open. So they will be able to examine them. They'll go up to, but it's been disturbed. You've got nerve damage. Even type 1, women who's got type 1, we've seen women who's got ongoing complications and nerve damage, because this is a nerve when they're cutting. When they're cutting this infancy or child who's fighting away or newborn baby, they damage nerves. So women will have ongoing complications whereby they damage even the ovaries of the ureter, the opening of the ureteromatitis. They might cut that and damage that for long. Women will come long time incontinence of urine and nerve damage as a result of FGM type 1, for example. They might think, type 1 is so nice, simple, but it's not. They will have nerve damage. And type 2, again, it's involved on the inner labia, outer labia removal. Again, it's a scar tissue. Type 3, they remove everything and they leave a tiny hole. So the long-term complications almost, you might both type 1, type 2, but the complication exactly the same for both mentally, physically, emotionally. because that right was taken away. It's designed for a reason, for vaginal birth and enjoyment. They should leave it like this. It's a child abuse. There's no benefit in different types. So as an FGM specialist midwife, let me finish this. The types are there for us to diagnose. So types can go 1A, 1B, 2C, whatever we see, and a month of anatomy that's been cut. So if you've got a newborn baby, for example, those girls who've been cut the day they were 7 days old, for example, they will cut tip of the whatever the anatomy is there, because they're just newborn babies. So that woman, when she grows up, it depends on what is left and what is there. So like I say to you from the beginning of our conversation, FGM survivors are unique. Each woman, 330 million girls, have her own story to tell, her own cutting to tell. The types are for us clinicians to have a sort of a pathway to follow. The complication, both emotionally, physically, is the same.
Let's talk about emotionally, and thank you.
That's something that we don't talk about it.
I want to talk about emotions and the effect of mental health. I have to tell you that if it, my daughter's clearly it's not happened, but I would imagine it would have a profound impact on their mental health, their emotions. Can you maybe just share with us some of the women you've met and the impact once they fully realize, in fact, many of them would have realized what's happened to them, and the ongoing physical impact. But tell us about the mental impact it has on women to recall and be suffering from this condition. Describe to us the mental impact.
Okay. So mental impact is a very big word, actually, for us to summarize in this block.
I'm sorry.
For FGM survivors, they might not connect the two together, but unless you expose to that education and clinicians explain the problem that you're going to as a result of, for example, women who had FGM survivors, mental health is the last thing they will think about. So physically, they're going through damage, so trauma. Yes. So they might decline examination. That's why they decline examination, because they're afraid they remember the one they were cut, if they have recollection that they were cut. Also, psychologists define that body will remember trauma, whether you're a baby or not, okay? So women will come to you and they will tell you they don't feel at whole. They don't feel as a woman as a whole. That tells us a lot. Women telling you I don't feel as a whole, they're taking away my right from me. In terms of mental health, we have to be very careful. There's a counseling, there's a trauma happened to this woman. So the physical impact also have a mental impact on them. But how do you impact this? Through referring them to appropriate signposting into counseling. FGM survivors don't take counseling straight away, especially when we're talking about the West. The reason being, those mothers, they're having their first baby, maybe they're new to the country, they have other impacts. Remember, women, you have to look at them as a whole. Remember what I told you about the politics, the culture, the tradition. Now women living in the West, for example, in the UK, she coming with a language barrier, homelessness, and immigration problems, having her first baby to new country, hypothetically. And so the last thing she's going to think about herself. A woman I see, remember, I see pregnant women and non-pregnant women. Now when they finish their childbearing age, they settle, the children are growing up. Now they're impacting other problems they're coming. It comes alive. She kind of simulates screening and the ongoing pain she's having, the nerve damage, whether they're type 1 or type 2, and intimacy problems, for example, pelvic pain, and endometrious pains they go through. Everything that women will go through, what FGM survivors also will go through. But this is where the cut. If you're FGM survivor, I'll go to my GP with a bladder problems or overreacting problem, but I've mentioned the word FGM, they might not connect the two together and send me to clinic. What I need is pelvic health pain, I will need bladder care, bundles. But those FGM survivors are not looked in that way, because already we put them in the box. The FGM survivors, they're already gone through do you understand? So the pathways, even in the West, are not quite clear for FGM survivors, because already we're putting them in this box. Yeah, but that would
it's okay. How would it impact relationships? It does seem that this is such a fundamental part of being a woman, that it's been mutilated. It must impact upon having close, tender relationships. Does it not?
Of course. So impacts them in different way. For example, in a way by So unless you remember what I say, traditionally, we don't talk about sex, we don't talk about intimacy, women don't talk about feeling. So it takes a long time for women to connect that two together. The only way she connects the two together once she gets empowered about her body, what's the fraction of the father is, then she will connect the problem she's having. Problem we're having is an intimacy problems, marriage breakdown, divorce rate is high, affairs are high. Men tend to marry a second wife. Yes, because women might decline having intimacy, she might not enjoy, whatever. But we don't put those in a shed to say, okay, let's go together psychosexual clinic. Let's impact what actually is being cut or removed. Because the myth is women who have had FGM, they don't have feelings. That's not true. What we know now, they can go for counseling, they can have a psychosexual, they can be empowered about their body. There's a great examples in Europe, 26 countries, women in Europe, in Europe, they offer holistic care. So they look after FGM survivors as giving them access to identifying and counseling, psychosexual in one setting. So they don't have to refer them to different. In England, we don't have a clear pathways. So you got the FGM clinic. We're very good with safeguarding because we've got one of the best laws, by the way, in the world. In the UK, we've got the safeguarding law, the 2015 Act for FGM Survivor change, where you train the clinicians and become mandatory training. The awareness is great. We've got the 2003 Act. Since 1985, we had a law in this country. So the law is getting strengthened, and people come and learn from us. The world, America is learning from us. Canada is 20 years behind where the UK is. So UK, we're getting it great when it comes to safeguarding, but we're not getting great when we identify an earlier. So women who have GPs, they're not accessing FGM clinics. They might wait 7 years before they come to a clinic where they can just self-refer within 2 weeks. We see the women.
I understand.
So the gaps within, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
thank you. Naima, same question
I
to you,
just
Naima.
wanted to add on to one point. When you ask how does it affect relationship,
yeah,
and I will just give you a quick, so for your audience to understand. You can imagine a girl who had been cut when she was a baby. Then she have her first intimacy, for example, type 3, where they cut, they stitch, and they just leave a very small hole. That initial intimacy can be so painful that the message that goes into that woman is like, intimacy is pain, no pleasure, no. So at that moment, whenever a man comes near her, instead of like feeling relaxed, just waiting for that, the pain comes and then her body kind of, and then all of a sudden the intimacy becomes more of one-way traffic rather than both. So it is more for like men to understand also what actually happened to a woman when she's cut. Because I doubt that women are talking more about that psychosexual trauma. That is something that I have heard from many women talking about. It is so painful. Even if now the NHS, for example, they do defibrillation, which is more like a stitching of that, like cutting a bit. But even when Huda came to Huda and many others who have more explained to us, because when a woman they do a stitch, here, instead of like giving you that opportunity to be unstitch the side that you want, they just do a small where maybe it will be enough for catheter, but not for your own pleasure. Right. So there is a lot of things that we really want to be talking about, but that psychosexual trauma is what is affecting more. But even when it comes to our own language, what language? I know it in English. What can I say it in my language? How? Yeah, so those are the kind of things.
Thank you.
There's a barrier.
Oh, yes. And that was just the first hour of our dialogue. Oh my gosh. It was both detailed in its content, to really get into the subject, but you can see the widespread implications for millions, tens of millions of women to have had this procedure, or indeed FGM survivors, female circumcision who experienced cuts, and the ramifications of that action. Can you imagine? Oh, dear me. We are going to reproduce this interview as part of the podcast series. And so look out for the series when it's issued. There's the content there was rich and detailed, but absolutely necessary to share with you today. Okay. I'm minded to say that I want to hold a 1 minute silence for those women who have died as a direct result of being initially survivors, but then demised. We haven't honoured their memories, and I'm going to devise an appropriate ceremony for that. I believe this is avoidable harm, avoidable pain, avoidable anguish. Oh, wow, as I say, it is really quite it is quite something. I'm almost lost for words, but that dialogue was one that will leave an indelible mark on my person for some time to come. That's for sure. That's for sure. I want to thank both women for being so open and transparent, so free to share their knowledge with us. Okay. And that was only just halfway through the dialogue. There's much more that was said. So please look out for the podcast when it is issued. It is an absolute required listening, absolutely required viewing. It is both inspirational but informative experience, and one in future we can avoid if we take direct action today. Commit to eradicating this practice. Commit to eradicating the practice. What I'm going to do is put on the screen again details of how you can contact Unshackled Duma. I believe if you use that as an initial route, okay, on the podcast series, we'll also put contact details for Huda, who is a specialist lead midwife who specializes in women who are FGM survivors and are now going through childbirth and all the complications it has caused. Okay. But I take a deep breath and I say this slowly because it's difficult to put into words as you listen to that. And I don't know how we could do that to ourselves, quite frankly. I really do not understand how we could do that to ourselves. We should do better. We can do better. We must do better for the sake of women and girls around the world. We collectively must do better. Anyway, let me not say any more on that particular point for the moment, but I'm keen that you not simply look away from this, that we acknowledge it as being a fact in our communities, in our communities, and that we commit to seeing its eradication, that we bring into the fold, particularly those traditional leaders for whom they see this as being a rite of passage, a purity experience. Can you imagine doing such a thing on a dead person? Can you imagine? Can you imagine doing such a thing to a dead person? And it's for those reasons why the motivator, this channel, will keep this particular issue in mind, that it will not be forgotten. We will not forget those women who are survivors, and we will try to protect as many women and girls from having to go through this experience as much as we can. Please join us in this campaign to protect women and girls from this experience. And if you are unsure as to whether or not you should join us in this campaign,
I simply ask you to look into your hearts. That's what I ask you to do. Look into your hearts and put yourself, just ask yourself this question. Would you want this for your daughter? Would you want this for your nieces? Mm-hmm. Would you really want that for your daughter? Would you want it for your nieces, for your girl cousins? Mm-hmm. Would you? You've heard these women provide this first-hand account. Okay. I'm going to put the details of Unshackled Duma on the screen. There we go. Just to remind you, Naim Ali, former mayor of Southwark, is the founder of Unshackled Duma. Unshackled Duma is a London-based organisation that empowers women and girls, particularly from Black, Asian, and world majority populations and Muslim communities. The organisation focuses on promoting self-empowerment and autonomy and advocacy, with a strong emphasis on eradicating female genital mutilation, FGM. It raises awareness about FGM's harmful effects and supports survivors and works towards eradicating the practice. There you have it. There you have it. There you have it. There you have it. We're going to end the broadcast there now. I hope you understand. All you have to do is just look into your hearts. Okay, just look into your hearts. But help us to spread the word. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. It really does help us out. Okay, it tells the YouTube algorithm that the content, this content maker, is worthwhile content to be shared with the tens of millions of YouTube subscribers. It's free to subscribe. I want to thank you all for your attention today. Spread the words. Spread the words. What I will do is to close this podcast with the intro video for that main dialogue. And I hope you understand why, because it sets the tone, it sets the context in which this is happening. And the next time, we remain the motivator.
I speak not from theory alone, but from a lifetime of watching what this practice does to women and girls, female genital mutilation, FGM. It's often defended in the language of culture, honor, or preparation for womanhood. But strip away those words, and what remains is harm, deep, lasting, and entirely avoidable harm. At its core, FGM is a deliberate injury or removal of healthy tissue from a girl's body. There is no medical benefit, none. What there is, however, is immediate danger, severe pain, shock, infection, and in some cases, death. I've known women who still remember the day with a clarity that borders on trauma. The fear, the restraint, the absence of consent. These are not small things. They shape a person's sense of safety in the world. But the damage does not end there. Many women live with lifelong complications, chronic pain, recurrent infections, and difficulties with menstruation are common. Childbirth, which should be a moment of strength and renewal, becomes far more dangerous. Women who have undergone FGM are at higher risk of prolonged labor, tearing, and even losing their babies. These are not rare occurrences. They are predictable consequences. There is the quiet harm,
the kind that does not show in medical charts. FGM can profoundly affect a woman's intimate life. It can make relationship painful, diminish trust, and leave emotional scars that are difficult to articulate. We do not speak enough about that. We should. Some will say, this is tradition. I understand the power of tradition. I've lived long enough to respect it. But not all traditions are worth preserving. Practices that diminish, endanger, or silence women must be questioned. Culture is not static. It evolves, as it always has. We have abandoned harmful custom before. This should be no different. What troubles me most is that this is done to girls, children who have no say in the matter. It removes their autonomy before they're even old enough to understand it. And once done, it cannot be undone. Let us be clear, protecting girls is not an attack on culture, it is the defense of dignity. Communities that turn away from FGM have not lost themselves, they have strengthened themselves. They have chosen health over harm, respect over fear. At this stage in my life, I have little patience for silence on matters like this. We know the consequences. We have the evidence. The question is not whether FGM is harmful. It is whether we are willing to act on what we already know. We already know. On what we already know.
This morning, I'm not standing in front of you as the mayor of Southwark, not as a councillor, not as an ambassador, as a survivor of FGM, as a survivor of FGM, as a survivor of FGM. Talking about my own genitalia or anybody is not something that can happen so lightly. But it takes courage from a person to come out and speak, to change tomorrow, to change the future. And that's why I say no to shame, no to shame, no to shame. And I refuse to be silenced. 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 I refuse anything that had happened to me when I was a child, against my wishes, and no one consented or asked me for permission. I was young. I was naive. I was not able to make any choice or even pick up. Can you imagine? 6 years old going through that. But before I tell you, FGM is being practiced in almost 98 countries. In every country, there are many cultures. So when I speak, you need to know, like, I'm not speaking for every culture, because it might be different. But the fact, the truth is, it's done to a girl almost in the same way. They might call it type 1, type 2, type 4, but the thing is, they slice, they cut a part of us. And that's what I'm talking about. The women I loved, the women who are there to protect me, they were not horrible. They were not kind of like doing it because of abusing me, child abuse or anything. They did it because of love. Otherwise, they never had any voice. They have to practice. They have to do it. Otherwise, they will lose. They'll be kicked out. They thought that to protect me and to be accepted, I have to go through it. Blood. For many, they die as a result of overbleeding. For many, because of the infection and blood. For many, they die as a result of overbleeding. For many, because of the infection and blood. For many, they die as a result of overbleeding. For many, because of the infection and
it does seem, and I've done many long hours of study on this, it's the traditional leaders, whether the clan leader or the tribal chiefs, those who are seen as being monarchs, who seem to be the persons who seem to be continuing or wanting the practice to continue. And yes, you are on the outside pushed them backward, that's true. But I want to keep pressing you on this point. Because I said that whenever I speak to people from that part of the world, right across that, you mentioned the countries, Sudan, Somalia, Kenya, Uganda. I'm like, keep pressing them on the traditional leaders and their role in this. They always want to back away from it. I need to face it. This is the motivator show, you see. So all the evidence seems to focus on those people as being the
Mm.
custodians of culture and traditions, the ones who need to be convinced that this culture and tradition needs to change for the sake of our women. Am I right? I'm testing you both on this point, but it does seem to me to be a junction point. Am I right or am I wrong in my assessment?
You know what? You really have given me a lot of insight because the way we are looking at empowering, educate women, do this, make sure you access service. But I want it. If I go there, I will. But at the same time, it's more like you have touched something that maybe we haven't been doing it in a way that bring them and tell us what you think about it. But unfortunately, our conversation in the Western world is completely different when we are in Africa, I'm telling you. We can't talk openly. Everything is somehow limited in a way. When we go, we cannot talk to our elderly in a way. Obviously, we do respect our elders, our
Mhm,
religious leaders, but
mhm,
sometimes it is good for us to sit with them and tell them the pain that we've gone through and we're still going through. It is good for us to sit with them and tell them the pain that we've gone through and we're still going through. It is good for us to sit with them and tell them the pain that we've gone through and we're still going through. And I think
mhm.
this is a conversation that I believe we should start continuing. And I think by just talking to you, you have shown me something that I haven't looked at more before. And thank you to you.
I speak not from